This is Saturday, March 17th, 2007, St. Patrick's Day, and we are interviewing Colonel Don King, United States Air Force retired, at GrassRoots Television, Aspen, Colorado. Colonel King is 86 years old, having been born on 13 November 1920. I am Lieutenant Colonel Dick Merritt, United States Marine Corps retired, and I'll be the interviewer for the Roaring Fork Veterans History Project. Don, could you state for the record what wars you served in?
I started out with World War II and was involved in Washington with Korea and with Vietnam. I was in the Pentagon during Vietnam, half of it.
How many years did you serve on active duty?
I'm credited with 30 years.
30 years in retirement.
Right.
Where did you serve during some of those 30 years?
Well, I started out in where did I start out? See, I got a blank spot. Started out in Randolph, or at Hicks Field in Fort Worth, Texas, and then went to Randolph Field in San Antonio, which at that time was called the West Point of the Air. And then I went to Foster Field in Victoria, and that was where I did my initial flight training.
What year was that?
That was 1941.
And was that before Pearl Harbor then?
That was before Pearl Harbor.
Okay.
I was at Randolph Field on Pearl Harbor Day.
Right. So then you served during the Korean era and the Vietnam era and certainly the Cold War era. Your career spans a number of...
I spent 13 years in Washington.
13 years in Washington. So that covers where you served. It seems like where you were born kind of set the tone for your life. I've traveled around the world. Where were you born, Don?
I was born in a place called Bansamanteka in the Belgian Congo.
Belgian Congo and Africa.
In Central Africa.
And your father was?
He was a medical doctor and built a hospital out in the boonies.
Out in the boonies. And so how old were you when you returned to the United States?
About 2.
About 2.
Yeah.
And where did you grow up then, Don?
I grew up for the most part in Newton Center, Mass., a suburb of Boston, until about 1931, and then I moved to Ann Arbor, Michigan. And from there I came out to Colorado to go to school in 1939.
And which college were you attending?
I went to the University of Denver for 2 years.
So in 1941, you became a cadet in the Army Air Corps. It's the precursor of the Air Force.
Right. I volunteered when I finished my second year of college for the Army Air Corps and for the Navy. And my approval for the Navy came first, but I held off because I wanted to go to Randolph.
Wanted to go to Randolph.
And it came along about 2 weeks later. And I went down San Antonio, or to Fort Worth, and on August the 18th. And from there I went through the flying training program.
At that time, were you prompted to be drafted, or did you enlist in the Army Air Corps?
No, I was not drafted. In my 2 years at Denver University, I went through the civilian pilot training program. So each year I changed airplanes, started out in a Piper Cub, ended up in a Waco, which is similar to a Stearman, which the Air Corps used as a trainer.
What kind of instructors did you have? Were they civilian pilots, or?
We had civilian pilots in primary.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been Hicks Field. When we went to Randolph, everything was all military from there on.
When you got your wings, what was your first assignment, Don?
It was to go to Lake Charles, Louisiana, and open a new advanced flying school. And there were probably out of my class, there were about 13, and there were about 10 to 15 from the class before. And this was a school that wasn't even functioning yet. Lake Charles is in the southwest corner of Louisiana, and it's very low, 10 feet above sea level. At the time I got there, they had finished a couple of runways, but they had no ramp, and the hangars weren't usable. It was an incomplete air base.
Incomplete air base. At that time, the war had been declared on Japan and Germany.
We were well into the war at that time.
The war. So how long were you at Lake Charles?
I was in Lake Charles for about a year, and then they moved the whole school to Victoria, Texas, which they had opened a second school. You have to place all of this in perspective of the time and the size of the Army Air Corps back in 1939. Probably didn't have more than 200,000 people in it. We had almost no airplanes, so this was an expansion of significant size to something around 80,000 later on that we were training.
When you went to Victoria Field, were you instructor?
I was instructor at Foster Field, Victoria.
What type of aircraft?
We used AT-6s, and we also had some P-35s that the regular force had. P-35 was a stubby, single-engine, all-metal airplane, and it really was about the forerunner to the Thunderbolt or to the P-47 used in World War II. You had the P-36, or P-30, P-36 came in between, and the P-43. And then you notice I say P. Everything in those days, fighters were called Pursuit.
Pursuit.
Pursuit airplanes.
Mm-hmm. Did you make a transition to troop carrier type aircraft, the multi-engine, and
much later?
Much later.
Much later.
How much later from Victoria Field?
From Victoria, I went back to. I went for a stint in B-24s. Oh. And I didn't like them, and they didn't like me.
Was that the Liberator?
That's a Liberator. Mm-hmm. They're a big airplane. I'm a little guy. And I spent about 3 weeks with them, and I said, that's it. And I left.
Where was the B-24?
It was in Fort Worth.
Fort Worth?
Yeah,
then
where they build them.
Go back to Victoria Field then?
No, I went from there to Austin, Texas. And transitioned into C-47s, which was a airliner before the war. It was a DC-3. Mm-hmm. And some of them, we trained in airplanes that had really been taken from the airlines. Some of them had beds in them, some of them didn't. It was an experience. I was a month there, and then they sent me to a place called Dunellen, Florida. And Dunellen was 11,000 people in it, and all but 900 were black. So there was no housing, no place to live there. So I, with most of the other people, found a place to live in Ocala, Florida, which was 20 miles away.
Were you married at the time?
Yes.
When did you get married?
I got married on June 26, 1941.
1941. So
yeah.
Your wife followed you through the training?
She went with not through the flight training, but after graduation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then you had how many children?
We had 3 girls.
3 girls. I know that one of them married a Air Force officer who went on to fly for United Airlines.
Yep, he's still there. He's still there,
so
flying.
This traveling Africa and in the air seems to run in your family.
Well, he was the son of a sergeant pilot from Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And he was in the same class as I was, but not the same school.
I see. Yeah.
So we didn't run across each other until later on at the Pentagon.
When did you leave Glen Ellen?
I left Glen Ellen in the fall of, I guess it was 1943. We were an OTU, Operational Training Unit, for the Air Force School of Applied Tactics, which was located at Orlando. And they had about 16 airfields, all different kinds of airfields with all different kinds of airplanes on them. The purpose being to meld together different types of operations and actions. But in about October, I guess, they took us off of being an OTU, Operational Training Unit, for filler people, and started filling our permanent slots up. And they changed our flight training, and we didn't know exactly what was going on, but about a month later we found out we were headed overseas. And that was a guess by everybody. They changed our flying pattern a little bit. Instead of doing normal daytime flying, about 80% of our flying was night. No formation and low level and all kinds of things. As a matter of fact, one night we left Dunellen, I don't remember the time exactly, but 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening, and flew up to what was then the Chicago Midway, was the main airport for Chicago. We had breakfast there. Then we turned around and came back. So that's the kind of flying we did, and then we did a lot of low-level flying around Florida and the area.
Were there any indicators where you might be heading? Could have been Europe or the Pacific?
Could have been anywhere. We finally got the word that we were scheduled to depart in about 3 weeks, and the last fillers were taking place. And then we flew from all our airplanes and equipment up to Indiana, to Bear Field, where we turned in all our old stuff and we got new airplanes, brand new, and they were all loaded with all kinds of equipment to take. But we had a squadron of about 26 people and about 26 airplanes. And at Bear Field, they finally, after we were been there about 3 days or 4 days, they sent us to Florida. You can go to anywhere from Florida.
Anywhere from Florida.
We went to West Palm Beach, and we spent about 24 hours or 36 hours there. And then they gave us orders and sent us to Puerto Rico. On the way to Puerto Rico, we opened our orders, and that told us we were going to India. India. Our destination was Calcutta, India. So that's where we picked up, and we started going, and we flew to, well, it was a Brinkman Field in Florida at that time, or at Puerto Rico.
Puerto Rico.
And then we went through the Dutch East Indies and over to British Guiana. Spent New Year's Eve in British Guiana. No, we spent Christmas there. We spent New Year's Eve in Khartoum, in the Sudan. They call it today. It was a part of Egypt then. And from to get there, we went to the knob of Brazil that sticks out, and we landed there one day, and they kept us overnight. And then the next day, we still were there, and about 9 o'clock at night, 8, 9 o'clock at night, we took off for Ascension Island, Ascension Island is a volcanic island in the middle of the South Atlantic. And we had extra fuel tanks put in the airplane, which were fueled up. And as a matter of fact, had been in the air probably 30, 40 minutes and just climbed up to about 15,000 feet and headed out over the Atlantic. And here came the moon up. And then later on, we saw the Southern Cross. And it was a dark, dark night going out there. Ascension Island had a high-powered, non-directional beam. I know it was directional. And we got there about mid-morning the next day. Being in a volcano, it's kind of interesting. They ran the runway right through the heart of the volcano. So it went up and then it came down, and we were warned about that all the way over. When you get to Ascension Island, be careful of that lift.
That hump, yeah.
Well, I got lifted regardless. I thought about it right up until the time I was touching down, and then I forgot about it. So, and I bounced probably up 600 feet with power, went around, made a decent landing. We still had a pretty good load on the airplane because we had a lot of equipment, everything that we could load up to the max on the airplane. From there, we flew to Africa, and from Africa, across Africa to Sudan, and then down around Saudi Arabia. We weren't allowed to stop in anything that belonged to Saudi Arabia. We were friends, but not friends. And we went on to Karachi, India. And from Karachi, we flew to Calcutta.
The Dum Dum Airport.
The Dum Dum Airport.
You know, back in those days, did they have aerial refueling so that...
No, no one had even thought about it. Well, I think they'd thought about it, but
So they really had to plan the fuel loads to get you across.
If you missed Ascension Island, you were in trouble. Yeah.
So when you got to Calcutta with the aircraft, with the C-46s, what was your next movement?
We were C-47s.
C-47s,
Yeah.
okay.
What was our next one? Well, we spent about 2 days there waiting to find out where we were supposed to go. And then they finally, the boss came out and said that I was assistant operations officer for the squadron. But the boss been talking to the people at Eastern Air Command headquarters. And they said we were going to go up to a little place called Sylhet, India. It's up in southern Assam. And I won't go into a lot of this. But that was to be our home for the next 6 months, 9 months, whatever. And we still didn't know what we were going to do. And we got to Sylhet, and the British had the airfield was just being finished. We lived in things that we call bashas. They had straw roofs, straw around the side, bamboo around the side, and a concrete floor in them. We had 2 people through a room, so to speak. Very interesting. We slept under a mosquito net all the time. Airfield having been new and just finished, it wasn't on 110 or 120, it was on 240. So we had to work some systems out to change so we could use our equipment, because it was all 110.
Were those airfields sophisticated with asphalt on them? Or?
This was a sophisticated concrete and asphalt field with all kinds of little heart stands that were around in the trees or in the jungle. we were there for some time before we didn't know what we were going to do. They started us out by flying with support of the British on the Tidham front, which was the main battle line between India and Burma. And the Japanese controlled everything to the east of that line, and we were on the west side of that. We made 3 or 4 missions, days flying up there with British Hurricane fighters for escort. And it's kind of interesting. The squadron commander of the escort said, now that you're going to go, we're going to be your cover. He said, we won't leave you, but our airplanes ain't very good for this kind of activity. So you hit the ground or hit the deck, as they call the flying on the ground, and we'll be above you and below you and around you. We never did have an incident, but we had one funny little thing happened at lunch out at the British base one day. One of the guys had, what the devil, he had had his 45 down, and he'd just gotten his plate filled with food, and this vulture came pooping down and cleaved off his plate. He didn't have a chance to eat anything from it. And he pulled out his 45 and was just about to try and blow this bird apart, which he never would have hit. But
that's really, yeah, a lot of those.
Someone tapped him on the shoulder and says, "No, Saab.
No, Saab.
No, Saab can't do that. That may be my sister."
Oh, yeah, the
lineage and
the lineage and
religious
religion
problems
and
are very
yeah.
unusual to us.
Before you went into Burma, Don, had you any recollections of having read Rudyard Kipling and On the Road to Mandalay and George Orwell and
I think we'd
Burmese
been
Days?
exposed to several of those.
Because it's a very romantic era of the British India, the British Burma theater, and Lord Admiral Mountbatten of Burma, and the Chinese forces of Chiang Kai-shek, and the British, and the Americans, and the Japanese. And since I've been reading, you've been telling me about the history, it's an extremely interesting mix of people with the forces from India being led by British officers with Gurkhas and Assams and that type of thing. So
the Gurkhas are awesome.
They are awesome.
To use the modern term.
They are awesome.
They are awesome.
So when did you actually get involved?
Well, we had been
committed to Burma.
Well, we hadn't gotten to Burma yet. We had been there about a month, and then we realized that there was another airfield about 35 miles east of us, and they had gliders on it and C-47s, and they had. It turned out to be the 1st Air Commando Air Squadron group.
What was the name of that base?
I think it was Lollygot, but I'm not sure.
In India.
But we weren't told. We were told to stay away from it, which we did. And then one day came back from a mission, and the boss said everything's on stand down tomorrow. And then tomorrow evening we're going over to Lollygot. The whole squadron, all our airplanes and crews. So that's where we headed the next afternoon about 4 o'clock. And that's when we knew what we were there for. And we were going to we were going to drop over into Burma that night, and the next month or two We established 3 airfields over there inside the Japanese, behind the Japanese lines. The first one was Broadway. And this data here is the beginning of it all. That's that was our briefing at 4 o'clock before we took off.
That's General Wingate there.
And that's
British.
General Lord Wingate, the British commander of the operation. He told us what we were going to do, and what they did was to split up the 2 squadrons. Our squadron, split up with the air commando people. So they knew where we were going. We didn't. So I flew co-pilot for the assistant ops officer for the commando group. And there were about 2 or 3, 4, well, there were a couple of generals around. And our own head of troop carrier command flew in one of the airplanes. But they showed us where we were going, and where we were going was to this area right here, which was 150 miles behind the Japanese lines in the jungle.
So you were split between the Japanese forces, divided. You must have had some engineers going to make the field, and you'd have to have security for...
We had the engineers in the first 2 airplanes, or gliders that went in. They leveled it and hacked it and played with it. And we were originally going to pick up the gliders and take them back, but that didn't work out because several of them got wrecked, and they got in the way of other things. And they really had to cut the operation down about midnight.
This is what you'd call an expeditionary land.
This was the expeditionary force.
True sense of the word.
Yeah.
Well, I see some gliders up there, and
that's
so were you?
What they looked like the next day.
Were you towing the gliders, you yourself?
We towed a glider over the mountains. The lowest place in the mountains was 7,400 feet. And when we crossed the mountains, we had an airspeed of about 85 knots. We were right on the verge of being able to continue. But once we got over the ridge, then it was all downhill all the way to our target area. And what we had in our particular glider was a small bulldozer that had been designed specifically for this. Weighed 7,400 pounds. And that's what was in there, plus the crew of 2 people.
2 people. Did you ever tow more than 1 glider?
Not in that operation.
Not in that operation.
No, they couldn't get over the mountains with 2.
So say these gliders get down into Broadway, and did they hook up again and pull out of there, or some of them just never got back?
Some of them got hauled out, I think, but not many of them. They weren't in shape to...
What forces were in those gliders? Was it American troops or
there were
Indians?
some British Gurkhas security people in the first airplane or 2. There was a gentleman who had some lights and things for the next night in one of the early gliders. We had we could see it. This was all under a full moon. That was target day. Was night with the moon completely. It was quite bright, and you could see quite a lot. But we got radio contact and said, you're not going to pick up a glider, and so go home. Then we were going to come back on a second mission that night, and they turned that off. We got about 2,500 people in there
on Broadway.
On Broadway that first night, and most of them were engineers, engineers and security people. There were 2 bulldozers, and they spent the next day leveling fields, former paddy land, and it was named Broadway. Broadway.
Yeah. Did you haul anything besides troops and bulldozers?
We took in mules.
Mules?
We took in medicine. We took in ammunition. We took in fuel in barrels, 50-gallon barrels. We carried everything in to support this field, which lived for about 3 months. We also added 2 more fields, similar fields, in the area. One was called Aberdeen. You get British names of things, something like this. The next night, we were landing airplanes there every 60 seconds.
Every 60 seconds?
60 seconds.
Were
on that.
Were there any Japanese forces that came?
They didn't come around for about 6 days. We didn't have any indication of it. And then they tried to bomb the place. But by that time, we had moved people out to different locations. And the Brits had some Spitfires that they kept there, and they chased the bombers away. So they made 1 or 2 efforts, and that's about it.
Did we bring in more American troops then, or was it
no.
Gurkhas?
This was a British Army expedition run by Wingate. And Wingate's got his terms of reference at the Quebec conference between Roosevelt and Churchill. And that's when the plan to do this operation was evolved. The object being to keep the Chinese in the war, which were getting badly mauled. And they were occupying a lot of Japanese army people. So Roosevelt and Churchill agreed that Wingate had tried this the year before, but it'd all been on the ground with limited support. And he said, we can do it better. And they bought the scheme. General Marshall bought the scheme and said, we'll add some Americans to your Air Force.
In the meantime, General Stilwell, Vinegar Joe, was out there with the Chinese forces.
Yeah, he was nowhere near us.
Was he involved with the construction of the Lido Road and
the Lido Road, as the Chinese army moved from Lido down to, it was going to intersect with the old Burma Road.
Burma Road, into Mandalay.
Not Mandalay.
Just north?
It went east.
East.
So we were cutting off the hypotenuse. And the idea was that we would build this road and we would perform this air mission to try and destabilize the Japanese. And the purpose, basically, of these little airfields was to get our troops in so that the troops could cut the railroad. There was a railroad which ran north from Mandalay to the end of the line was called Michino. And Michino fell about, a month and a half, about June of 44.
Well,
and that was taken by Chinese. And also by some of the marauders.
Marauders. We'll get to that in a minute.
Yeah.
How long was Wingate around? Was he stayed right in the operation all the way through, General Wingate?
Wingate, unfortunately, was killed in the first week.
The first week?
In the first week. One of the Air Commando B-25s hit a mountain coming back from the Broadway. and everybody in the airplane was killed. We had mountains galore. We had horrible weather. I've never seen any weather in the United States even commensurate with it.
If you look at the map of Burma, it's like a horseshoe there, mountains on the Indian side and on the Thailand side there.
You know, it's like a moon that's about a third of a moon, and and that's all mountainous, and it goes all the way down from up into the Himalayas, all the way down to the ocean.
Did you ever haul anything out beside troops, say to the rear, wounded and things like that? Any animals or anything?
Oh, we took out wounded donkeys.
Wounded donkeys?
I don't mean donkeys. I mean
Mules.
Mules. We treated the mules the same as the people.
You had a veterinarian back there.
We had a veterinarian hospital back at Salet, and the commando group had a little, they called it an L3 or an L5 or something. They could land in very, very tight place, and they could pick up one or two casualties at a time, fly them back into one of our bases.
The mules.
And then we'd fly the people out to the hospital the next day.
And the mules treated like people in that they were so valuable for
They
transport.
were very valuable.
And we were talking, Don, you mentioned that one of the mules was carrying fuel on his back and got...
It had a flamethrower strapped to its back. And the group that it was with got shot up pretty badly one night. And we had that, we saved the mule, we loaded, I took the mule out myself, as a matter of fact. And if you want to smell something that smells terrible. But that mule was pretty quiet all the way. Yeah. And 3 months later, he was back in service.
What a story. We hear so much about the Burma hump, and you mentioned to me that there were lower elevations that you would fly over. You didn't actually fly the hump as a transport pilot.
I did, but not in this operation. This operation was well past starting, and the word came that we were going to move Mr. Stilwell's army to China.
Well, what was the operation called with Broadway? Was there a name to that one? Do you recall the name of the operation?
Near as I can recall, it was called Maundy Thursday or something like that.
Maundy Thursday, M-A-U-N-D-Y,
it was, I don't ever remember it as being Easter, but that's what one of my associates, it didn't have a code name in the time frame we knew it. We'd go to, code names were all British places for the most part. We had a couple of airfields that we set up on the, one was along the railroad, and we called it White City. It was an airfield for 3 days, for 3 nights. And we moved, I don't know how many Gurkhas into White City. And the Gurkhas, there was a ridge about 800 feet above the railroad on the opposite side from where we landed. The Gurkhas in my airplane, when we went in the first time, sat in the back and playing craps. They were great gamblers.
Great gamblers.
Oh, great gamblers they had. They had a lot of fun. They were laughing, joking, and everything.
I've seen the Gurkhas in Hong Kong guarding the tailor shops and jewelry shops with their beards and their turbans, and they always look pretty fierce to me.
Well, the airplane was pretty noisy.
Pretty noisy?
Pretty noisy. And then as we approached White City, a location for our landing, I rang the bell and called back in and get ready to get out. And it became deadly silent. And we landed, I don't know what, it was railroad land right on the, no airport. no prepared surface.
Can we take a look, Don, in your book here, your memoirs? I'd like to get a photograph of this one, if you could just hold that up.
Well, those are B-24s.
B-24s, okay.
Yeah,
but let's get it. Is your aircraft in here?
Oh,
This
yeah.
P-38.
Yeah. This is the inside. Okay, this is a group. This is the inside where we packed in all the materials.
Right, and here, Yanks fly rugged mountains to drop bundles for Burma. Did you parachute supplies in, Don?
We parachuted them, and some for free fall, depended
And some
on.
free fall.
And there's the great adventure of the time. There was at that time there was a comic strip by Steve Canyon, and that was patterned after Mr. Colonel Cochran here, who was the commander of this First Air Commando Group.
Was that Terry and the Pirates?
Yeah, Terry and the Pirates.
Yeah.
There were
yeah.
two different serials.
Two different serials. What's this here?
Well, this is...
Okay, three-way jungle war, beating Japs at the own game. That's probably the three airfields that you had, the expeditionary airfields.
Yeah.
See anything that you'd like to show us
Well,
here, Don? There's the mules.
There's the... that, I think, is the Denver paper. Post.
Airborne units split. Daring assault by British and Yanks cuts enemy lines. Gliders laying strong force after U.S. engineers carved two airstrips in the jungles.
Wingate back in Burma.
Okay, yeah, this
Wingate.
when General Wingate met with Mr. Churchill, but then Wingate was killed a week after the operation started. This is interesting here in that there's a place called Imphal in India.
That's the way the country, these were paintings
Yeah.
that were done around Imphal.
Mm-hmm.
And there's Terry and the Pirates.
Terry and the Pirates.
That was a very prominent one at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we were doing. We were landing all these places.
Well, one of the places, there's General Wingate killed in the air crash in the border. Britain's greatest guerrilla leader and jungle fighter was killed there. There's a couple things I'd like to ask you, Don, about. One is the hump, the Burma hump, which
Right.
the elevation and the purpose of flying over the Burma hump in relation
That
to
was the only supply line to China from America or Britain or anybody. And that was the purpose of this operation, or one of the purposes, was to chase the Japanese out of North Burma so we could connect the Lido Road with the old Burma Road and have a line of communication all the way into West China.
Well, that was from a base in China over, what, to Imphal in India, or wherever they could land.
Now, the Air Transport Command, as it was called in that day, they're the ones that flew things generally from India, from Upper Assam. They had B-24s that carried fuel. They had B-24s that carried equipment, and many, many, many C-46s. That was their mainstay. And they supplied the American forces in China and the Chiang Kai-shek people over there.
Well, Don, did you ever encounter any Japanese aircraft or close calls, or
No,
landed where they were?
I went one way and he went the other way.
Well, in Imphal and Manipur in India, I understand that you landed there one night for refueling, and
Well,
it's interesting.
I was coming back from China, way over in. We also supplied the OSS people that were deployed in China and North Burma, etc. So we'd fly to wherever they were, and I had a flight one night where I took some equipment to an OSS unit. It was about 12,000 feet on the top of a mountain, and over in Chinese Shan states. And it was a beautiful night going over. It was a hell of a night coming back. The weather was miserable. They have storms there that make anything we have here second class. And so I was coming back, and I hadn't seen the ground since takeoff. I'd gone to China, come back, and hadn't seen the ground, and I assumed I was at a certain place over Imphal. And I told my crew, I said, if we can identify the area, anything down below us as Imphal, we're going down. And I said, if we go down and land, we will be ready to take off in case the Japanese have taken Imphal. We wiggled our way down through the clouds, and never lost sight of that one hole. And of course, the Imphal plain's probably 20 or 30 miles wide in circles, and then there's mountains all around it. And we found the runway lights on, and we called for landing instructions, and no answer. So I said, here we go. Be ready.
Committed.
We're committed. And if we have to take off, we'll keep right on going. So we came down and made a nice landing, if I say so myself. And as we were going down the runway, I saw a vehicle come tearing out towards us. And it was a British ambulance type vehicle. And he, as we slowed down and stopped, he said, "You got to go back. You can't come in." And I said, "We're here. We're gonna stay until we can get out of here and get some daylight."
Get some refuel, possibly.
Well, we had fuel, but the violence in the frontal system above us we were getting tossed all over. So he said, "Well, all right, but we got over to operations," and he said, "You can't stay. Get your airplane park it in an area where you're ready to go." And he said, "This morning we had 80 or 90 Japanese airplanes come in here with the first light."
Japanese aircraft.
And
you landed on the field that they just left.
And so I said, "Okay, we'll get out of here as quick as we can." And so at first signs of daytime light, we taxied out and took off. The Japanese came back that day. We weren't there.
You didn't know you were gone. Well, you should have gotten
the battle for Imphal lasted about a month.
A month?
A month and a half. And when the battle for Imphal finally ended, which was the battle for entry into India, that was the doorway to India, the only one. And from that time on, the Japanese began falling back. We did cut their supply line over at White City. We tore up the railroad track, and we held that place until the Japanese finally conceded defeat there, which they don't do very often.
Well, when did Merrill's Marauders come in?
They were there before.
They were there before.
They were reconnaissance into North Burma, not with the Chinese, but adjacent to them. trying to make their trip a little easier and giving Stilwell a little push with his army as he tried to go down across the mountains and into the upper, I don't know what that valley was called now.
Toward China.
Toward China,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, over there, they had a supreme commander, Lord or Admiral Mountbatten of Burma, and you met General Wingate. Did you
Yep.
ever meet Admiral Mountbatten? He's a
Well,
very
after
famous-
this operation came to a close, and we got another group of transports that came in. The 4th Combat Cargo Group came, and they also, but before they came, they formed the 1st Combat Cargo Group at Sylhet. Actually, it was in Karachi. A number of senior people, I was one of them, not very senior, but I was senior.
Were you captain at that time?
I was a captain. We were selected to form 4 squadrons, and those 4 squadrons would have 25 airplanes and 30-plus crews. And they all came over in a gaggle to Karachi, 100 airplanes plus in crews and equipment to a degree. Their ground echelons were coming by ship and didn't arrive, of course, for another month. But we lined the guys up alphabetically or whatever. I don't remember how we did it. Into 4 groups that we selected people at various abilities, so each squadron would have certain abilities. And then we flew back to our base in Sylhet. And 2 days later, we were operating.
2 days.
2 days. 2 days later, we were flying missions. That went on for a while. Then they moved my squadron north to a place called Moran, which is up in central Assam. And I was in Moran for about 2 months, 3 months. And we had a steel plank runway there that was for runway designed to be used in the field when they didn't have time to put concrete.
Yeah, expeditionary mats.
Expeditionary stuff.
Yeah.
We had lots of rain. We had one problem with our steel mat, and we had a trouble with fog, low clouds. I had the way the planks fit together, they form a line of steel, an open line, and you can align your airplane with that.
Oh, yeah.
With that steel line. And one morning about 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, one of our, not my squadron, but the 12th Combat Cargo Squadron came in there and hauled stuff out. They lined up wrong and took off blind with a gyro that wasn't set right.
Uh-oh.
So he went down the side of the runway and took out about 10 airplanes.
Oh, my gosh.
No one got hurt. Can't believe it. Chickens got hurt.
Oh, gosh.
Those airplanes that were parallel to the runway were all loaded to take off. And we had a mess. We had various messes around.
Messes, a lot of things.
This
Well,
time.
did Admiral Mountbatten fly into that base then?
No, I had about 3 months in Moran. And then my group commander called me to come up to Dinchan, which was another 75 miles north of Moran. And we had a telephone system of a sort. It was a one-line, one-core field phone. And he said, "Come on up, I got something to tell you." So I went up to see him, and he said, how's your outfit doing? And I said, "Well, they're doing pretty good, General or Colonel." I said, we're hauling our stuff. He says, "Well, you're going to stop doing that very quickly, and we're moving you to Warzoop." Warzoop was over the mountains on the Lido Road. We not only were building the Lido Road over the mountains and then down this valley, so it would eventually intersect with the Burma Road, but we, where am I?
Well, we're getting to Mountbatten.
Yeah, well, Mountbatten came to visit me there at Warzoop. General Davidson came along with him. He was commander of the 10th Air Force. And we had Mountbatten for a day as our guest. And he talked to our crews, and we ate lunch with him, and had a very, very interesting visit. And then about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, he said, "Well, I better depart to go. Got other places to go." So we took him to his airplane and said goodbye. And about a month later, I got a letter from him.
From Admiral Mountbatten.
From Admiral Mountbatten. And it wasn't a long letter, but he thanked me for my courtesies there and his visit and so forth. And said that thanked us for doing a good job, and we were essential, et cetera, all those good things that you'd expect.
That's a family treasure now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a family treasure
Let's
now.
take a look, Don, at this the C-47 here.
And that's the hump.
That's the hump.
That's the Salween River.
In eastern Burma.
Yeah, western Burma. That's the dividing line between India and Burma. And that's the line that the Air Transport Command carried with their C-46s and B-24s.
About what altitude were they flying?
About 20,000 feet, plus or minus,
And
depending on weather.
And what about
The mountains were about at 16 to 18,000 feet high.
What
there.
about the loss of aircraft?
Well, they had C-46s, unfortunately, and they had C-46s that were of the early vintage, which had lots and lots of problems, electrical problems. They lost an awful lot of airplanes on the travel from northern Assam to Kunming, that area of China. The ground was littered with airplanes. You had to see them a few days after it had happened, or the jungle ate them up, devoured them. You couldn't tell they were there. I made about 6 or 8 flights of moving Mr. Stillwell's, General Stillwell.
Vinegar Joe.
Chinese troops. They had every transport airplane in the theater up there trying to move his Chinese army from India to China. And it lasted about a week and a half or 2 weeks. And we transported his whole damned army. Guns, equipment, everything. As soon as that was over with, we went back to our normal activity of supporting the British Army, which was moving south towards Rangoon or towards Mandalay.
Pursuing the Japanese.
Pushing the Japanese down. There were really 2 little wars going on there. One that was the British against the Japanese, and the other was the Chinese pushing the Japanese to get the Lido Road built.
In your normal operations,
We did get to connect to the Lido Road.
You did connect the Lido.
Connected the Lido Road with the Burma Road, And the squadron that I had originally gone over with went to China, and it worked on that segment over there.
Oh, China.
Yeah.
In flying back to your normal duties, did you ever see any other wildlife? You mentioned the mules. But
Oh yes, we had some surprises from time to time. When I was my squadron was in Warzoop, which was probably 200 miles south west of southwest of Lido, where the Lido Road began. We had a valley there that was really quite interesting, and the Japanese had been pushed back by the Brits enough. The 36th British Division had shoved them down what was left of the railroad south, and they had a couple of big engagements, and that was the end. But in the process, we saw a lot of country, and I woke up one day in my little tent and found out that we had a PT-19. That was a Fairchild primary trainer that we had used to train in our initial training in the States. They must have been surplus. We never knew why we got it or how we got it. I guess we had two of them. Later on, we got an AT-6, and that was, we had that all of 2 weeks, and then it was hauled off somewhere else. But we kept getting these odd planes from the States, from the training command. Needless to say, a bunch of young pilots with lots of ants in their pants saw those trainers and thought, well, we're going to have a great time with these. Can we fly them? Yeah, I said, you can fly them, but I'm going to fly this one first. I said, I'm going down south towards such and such a place. There's an elephant herd down there.
elephant herd.
Elephant herd. I'm going to go take a look at it. And I took somebody with me, one of the guys, and we went down to find the elephants, and we found this herd, probably 25 to 35 elephants in a group, males, females, and little ones. And we flew around them a couple of times, and the king of the flock, or the herd, didn't like it. And so I came back, and I came right across the center of the herd, and he came up on his rear hoofs, bellowing into the sky. And I said, this is dumb. We're going home. If anything happened here, we'd be mincemeat from
Well, that did make the press, didn't it, in Denver?
It made the press in Ann Arbor.
Ann Arbor.
And in a few other places.
Yeah.
And it was an experience. I had several little things like that go on in life too.
Well, what about the food and the mail and malaria or anything?
Well, we had lots of malaria or that kind of bug, but we took Atabrine, which rather than quinine, and we took it from the time we were approaching from Calcutta on. And then you took it for a month after you got through. We didn't want to get sick when we were on our way home. So I took it until I got back to the States and stopped, and I had no ill effects.
That's good. What about the food? Were you eating curry in India, or were you eating
that's native
beef?
food. That's native food.
That's native food.
We had pretty good rations of various types that our cooks did. Early on, we didn't. We had most of it was canned or frozen, and the frozen stuff Of course, we didn't have any freezer capability down in the valley in Warzoo. But we caught on to what we were ferrying. We were taking frozen steak, beef, to the Chinese. So every once in a while, there would be an airplane that couldn't get to the Chinese because of weather or something. And then we'd have a feast. But later on up at Lido, they got an ice plant in there finally in the latter days of the war. So if we had airplanes up in Lido, we'd get some ice and bring it back. And it would last a little while. But that's a very tropical, a very warm jungle climate. And Warzoo, when we went in there, we had nothing but tents. The engineers had erected our tents for us, but other than that, we were on our own, and there was no water.
Really kind of an expeditionary force, and you probably had 55-gallon drums, expeditionary fuel at Broadway, so you could.
We didn't have any drums in Broadway.
You didn't.
We had, no.
But the other.
We had fuel drums.
You had fuel, though.
Yeah, we had fuel drums for the. Fuel.
Well, what about the mail, Don? Was there censorship, or was it?
There was censorship. Every letter that went out was censored, one form or another. And everybody, the way we worked it in our squadron, everybody had a responsibility, and you'd have a team that would be censors for a week, and then they'd give it up and someone else would do it. But censorship was very tight, not like it is today. My wife didn't know where I was until 3 months, 4 months after I'd been there. You could guess certain things, but you couldn't be sure.
Was there any R&R Liberty or organized athletics?
Yeah, well, not organized athletics, but there was. You could get R&R. Everybody could get some periodically. Some of them went to Calcutta. That's not a very good place for R&R.
I've been to Dum Dum Airport. I wasn't too impressed there.
We went to. I went with a small group of 3 or 4 people up into Nepal area, and you had to find your way to get there. So we left Moran one day about mid-afternoon to get up to Dinjan and get into the other valley. And we got up there and we got a locomotive and a caboose. And we rode that locomotive and caboose down the railroad across for quite a ways. But that night, that's as far as it went, so we had to find a different way. We rode elephants, we did everything. And we finally got to the main north-south railroad, which went up into the Himalayas and up into our Gurkha country.
Gurkha, yeah.
Yeah, where they lived. The train came from Calcutta to the foot of this the mountains, and then they had a train that went up the mountains that went back and forth until we got to the top. And I spent about a week up there, and it was delightful. Mount Everest was in the distance, and so was several of the other mountains, and you could do exercise, whatever you wanted to do. And it was cool, comfortable. And other guys went there, and some of them went to another place. There's a very famous lake that's further west, and a lot of people went there. They had some camps there.
Well, as the war came down, where were you on VJ Day when the war ended?
VJ Day, I was on my way home,
Well, you were.
yes.
What, did you have points to go home, or?
Well, I got in, I guess it was VJ Day. What was the month that was?
August 15th,
Yeah.
1945.
VJ Day, I was in Ceylon Harbor on a freighter, and it was a working freighter. I had boarded it in Calcutta, and we were about 12 of us on it. It wasn't a regular troop ship. We lived in little boxes where there was 3 decks up and 3 at ends, and had a couple of those that were lashed down to the rear deck of the upper deck. And the first night we got out of Calcutta, it was so hot we couldn't stand the heat. So we went to the ship's carpenter the next morning and got a hacksaw or a little pigeonhole and cut holes in little windows, which later on we regretted because later on we had the only rough weather we had in the whole trip home. That freighter was going over about 40 degrees back and forth, and you'd get in the bed and you'd go this way and you'd go that way. And it was hard to, and if you got it on the right side of it, the water would come in from the splash from the ocean. But we arrived in Calcutta on VJ Day. The bomb was dropped about 2 days before that, and we were in the port. What did I say it was?
Well, Calcutta, you were headed to the States.
We went to Ceylon.
Ceylon, yeah.
Ceylon, and big city there, a big port, and the whole British Far Eastern Fleet was in the harbor there when we arrived. There were probably 10 or 12 troop ships from Europe that were at anchor in the bay on their way to Japan. I saw a site that I'd seen in an encyclopedia as a little kid where they decorated naval vessels with lights up in the masts and up all over. And that night after the war ended, the British fleet was lit up like a Christmas tree. It was beautiful, really beautiful. We had a party the next day. Our freighter was anchored right next to the British flagship for the fleet. And the admiral sent over word that they were going to have a party that day in their wardroom. And if the Brits have a party, it's a party. They have liquor on their ships. And we all went over there about 10 o'clock. And we're there for forever. And finally, a couple of us decided you had to get out of there. It was stuffy and hot. And we thanked the admiral for we went out on deck. And my friend and I looked over the side and we saw the admiral's barge tied up at the bottom of the stairway. So we decided we'd go down and look at it. So we went down and looked at it. And my friend Crockett, he said, "Shoot, we can drive this thing."
If you can fly a plane, you can drive the admiral's support.
I'll steer it and you run the engine.
Yeah.
And so we boarded it and cast off, and we probably were 50 yards off before anybody knew that we were there. And then the flat lights began to come down at us, and we speeded up. We went between the anchor chain and the bow and off into the darkness of the harbor, and they lost us. Then we drove the barge into the city and tied up and went in and played around a while.
The war was over.
The war was over. And we came back and got in and took the barge. We were headed back to the flagship. And we got intercepted probably 300 yards from the ship, and by some British troops or sailors. And they said, "No, you don't have to take the boat back. We'll take the barge back." And we had a lifeboat that was over there that people were looking for us. And they said, we got into that and went home to our freighter, and the sailors took the barge back to the flagship.
So that closed the chapter.
That closed the
chapter of the Far East, and then you came back to the States, and of course we entered the Cold War. And where was your next duty station, Don?
Oh, I came back, and they couldn't have done a nicer thing to me. Since I was remaining in the Air Force.
You became career, so you were discharged.
I became career shortly thereafter.
And during that period of time, the Army Air Corps became the U.S. Air Force
Well,
in
in
1970
or 69 or 70 or something like that. I lost my train of thought.
Well, your duty assignment with the
Well, they sent me from Santa Ana, California, to San Angelo, Texas. San Angelo is a nice little city of the training command. And my job was to teach Chinese how to fly. I had about 2 months or 3 months of that, and I said to myself, I can't stand this. There has to be something better. So I applied for photo reconnaissance school, and fortunately I got it. And so I came back to Denver, Colorado, to Lowry Field, and I spent the next year learning the photo reconnaissance business. And when I finished my year, the Air Force had lost me.
You're probably out visiting at DU.
It took them quite a while, and we were making all kinds of efforts to. I was lost for 3 months. And then I had a friend in SAC that family had known for years. And Betty's mother told him what was going on, and he says, I can do something about that. So I shortly got orders to the 311th Reconnaissance Wing at Andrews Air Force Base. And that was the headquarters it became the headquarters for all reconnaissance in the Air Force.
That's in Washington, D.C. area.
It's at Andrews Field today. As a matter of fact, later on in my career, I was on the master planning board for Andrews. So I'm familiar with some of the things that they did there. But I had a tour with SAC. We got into a personality battle between two colonels. One shortly to become both of them shortly to become generals. And I ran into my friend from Burma, and he said, Don, you should come to the Air University with me. He was chief of staff of the Air University. I said, you can't get me out of SAC. The only way they get anybody out of SAC now is if they don't know how to fly, and they're lousy officers. It's verboten. And I said, no, you can't do it, you can't do it. Well, he did do it, but when I got back from my cross-country proficiency flight and got back to headquarters, I got called into the front office. They had already heard the word. Mm-hmm. My boss was in Greenland with the SAC commander. Vice commander. And I said, he said, when Cullen gets back, he's going to be upset with you. Mm-hmm. And I said, I know that. I can't do anything about it. I've done what I could do. And he got the thing canceled. He went down and talked to the CG of SAC and said, I want King back. And the orders were canceled, and I didn't go to the Air University. Well, that was precipitated another little trickle-dickle. This was the spring of the year and coming up, and assignments at the Air University were being handed out. And SAC had asked for a whole ream of colonels out of the War College. And they weren't getting any of them. And finally, LeMay, who had taken over, said, what's holding these people I want up? And he was told by his personnel people that they were having trouble with the Air University, basically over a guy named King, who was in the 311th. They wanted King, and we wouldn't give it to him. So he said, you give them King and get mine people.
There was a trade-off.
It was a trade-off. I got 11 colonels went to SAC for me. And I didn't really ever go to the Air University because my boss, shortly thereafter, moved to Washington, D.C., and he became commanding general of the Washington Air Force Washington Command. And his boss became vice chief of staff of the Air Force.
Oh.
So we were playing high stakes game.
High stakes game.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with that. Washington. You were there 13 years.
I spent 13 years all told, 9 of it in the Pentagon, 9.5 in the Pentagon.
Did you ever get back overseas again, Don?
I went to Alaska.
Alaska?
In the middle of my 13 years, and spent 3 years up there, and they were 3 wonderful years.
How about in the post-war period in France or Europe or anything like that?
Oh yes, I got a job in Europe, and
What year was that?
that was after I had finished school at Maryland and gotten my certificate, my diploma, and that had to be around 52 or 53, somewhere in that.
Korean era, Cold War.
Yeah, in the Cold War. And I told people I was going to get reassigned anyway from headquarters command, and so they said, well, where do you want to go overseas? And I said, well, I'd like to go to Germany. And they fidgeted around for a few days and said, we got an assignment for you in Wiesbaden. Is that okay? And I said, that's delightful. So I went to Wiesbaden, and I moved into the Office of Operational Plans, and since I was a newcomer on the street, I got some odd activities to do for a while. And then one morning the buzzer rang, and my immediate boss said the general wants to see you in ops. So I said, oh, what about? And he said, that's up to the general. So I went to see General Tate, who was Assistant Chief of Staff for Operations. And he said, I got a job for you. And I said, what's that, General? And he said, well, we're going to get some missiles in Europe. And you're going to be the man who formulates our project. You're a project officer for bringing the missiles to Europe. I see I've had an interesting life.
You sure have.
And I said, well, I don't know anything about missiles, General. And he said, I know that. Neither do I. Neither does anyone in this headquarters. And everything we know about him is down in the vault in the basement of the caserne in the top secret setup. And you've been cleared to go in there and do whatever you need to do. You got the job. You bring it back to me with a plan. So that turned out to be a very interesting situation.
Did you have your family with you then?
No, they were in Washington, but they were about to come over to Switzerland because there were no housing in Wiesbaden. So if you wanted your family over there, you had to find housing in Switzerland, Luxembourg, or France. And France didn't have much except in Paris. It didn't have much there either. Anyway, I drew my little plans up. I made 2 or 3 trips to Washington to talk to people in various parts of the government, and went down to Cape Canaveral and saw the missile and a few other things, and came back and put it all together. Briefed my boss, the general, and then I took it back to Washington to brief the air staff on that. And they said, okay. The boss said in Wiesbaden said, okay, that finishes your project there. What are you going to do now? And I don't know, General. He says, I got a job for you. You're going to Paris.
Paris?
Yeah. You're going to be the go-between between me and the French Air Force and the French government. We had a small office in Paris, about 8 people. And so that's the job I got sent to. And I said, I don't want to go, General. My family's on the way here. And he said, go think about it over the weekend. And Monday morning, he buzzard rang, and he said, come on in and see me and tell me what you decided. So I went in to see him, and he said, well, what'd you decide on? I said, General, I haven't changed my mind. I said, I'm steadfast. I got a family coming over here, going to Switzerland. I've got an apartment rented in Basel. And he said, well, that's too bad. You're going to Washington. You're going to Paris. So I went to Paris for about 60 days was TDY. And then my permanent orders were cut, and I spent 3 years there.
3 years in Paris with a family?
3 years in the family, yeah. I got those things straightened out.
Well,
all my furniture that was going to Switzerland turned around and came to Paris. Housing was miserable in Paris, but fortunately I ran into the general who was head of the NATO Air War College, and he had a house out in Versailles, and he said he and his wife were getting out of it. They were going to go over to the Trianon Palace Hotel and live in the palace. The house was too much for him. So I was able to get his house and move my furniture into it.
And your family, how many children did you have at that point?
I had 2.
2 at that point.
Yeah. So I spent 2 years in that house, and then I talked to my landlord and said, I'm going to be leaving next spring. And you know that. Spring, early summer. And I'll stay in this house if you'll assume half and half of the taxes on this house. The French have a very interesting law. If you live in that house on January 1st of the year, you are liable for all taxes on that house for the year.
It's not prorated.
It's not prorated. You pay it. And he didn't think I'd move. But I did. I said, I'll find another place in Paris, which I did then. Someone else just moving out of a place, and I was lucky to get in it. But had lots of experiences.
Well, you had a 30-year career, Don, and really life started out in Africa, and you served active combat in Burma, and were involved with the Cold War and some of the planning, and Korea, and even into Vietnam. And retired in 1970. When you retired, where'd you go? You had your family?
I left my last tour in the Pentagon, and I had 4 years in that particular tour. And I was in plans, the Directorate of Plans, War Plans, Plans and Policy. And then the last 2 years I was there, I was the go-between on all the documentation that went out of the Air Staff and went to the Chief of Staff to be discussed by the JCS, the Joint Chiefs. So I was a Joint Chiefs guy for about 2.5 years. I'd had enough.
30 years.
I'd had enough, and I said, they said, you can't go. And I said, oh, yes, I can. They said, we can extend you. And I said, no, you can't. You've got to go to the secretary to extend me if I disagree with you on this one. Secretary had gotten smart by that time, Secretary of the Air Force, and had broken a lot of these things down. So that's when I came to Colorado, and I was in the Air Defense Command for 1 year. I was the Director of Manpower and Organization for ADC for a year, and then I retired.
Where did you retire to? Did you go
to Colorado Springs?
To Colorado Springs.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to go there.
Well, when did you move to Aspen?
Oh, after I'd been in Colorado Springs about 3 years.
And you've been in the valley ever since. We were neighbors up in Mountain Valley. And
I've been here ever since.
Been here ever since, and
Yeah.
skiing and everything. Don, did your military experience influence your thinking about war, about the military in general? I'm speaking about issues today.
Oh, you can't help but think about it. The dumb things that we do today. I realize we're in an open society today, and it's hard to keep secrets, but it was hard to keep secrets in World War II. But the way we get our media forming thought processes of lots of people, it's for the birds. And I feel very sorry for the guys that are over there, because when you got a war and you don't finish it, I thought we learned our lesson in Vietnam, but we didn't learn anything from it. I could go down the list, it's not appropriate. But security today is so wide open that it's pathetic. It wasn't in World War II. People probably don't realize it, but I was down in Lake Charles, I said, and in Texas, and the Gulf Coast was continually, the ships were being torpedoed within eyesight of the shore. And I went down to bombing gunnery school at the gunnery range in Texas, and from Lake Charles with my class, and there was a big freighter laying less than 100 yards out from the end of the water line that had been torpedoed. With an eyesight. Yeah, and that was not uncommon.
A lot of people don't realize how close. I'm from the West Coast, the Japanese, the fire bombs. There were some issues out there.
Quiet. Yeah, turn off the lights.
Yeah, we did that. Don, do you attend any reunions of any of your squadrons or organizations?
I have attended one with my original squadron. I went over to Europe or to the Far East, Middle East. The 27th Troop Carrier has had an active program for years. They're all gone except about 6 of us. It may not be 6, I don't know. I got a letter last week that a very dear friend, a fellow that was our squadron historian, and he's the best damned historian that anybody ever had. He had all kinds of history in that, and most of it has been bundled up, annotated, and it's been sent to 2 places. The Air University has received part of it, and part of it has gone to the museum at Wright-Patterson. But the letter the other day, I got a warning card about a month ago that he was ill. And they didn't say what, but he died last week. He had Lou Gehrig's disease. I don't know how he lasted as long as he did. But there aren't many of us left.
Well,
we're going to have a reunion this year somewhere. I'm not sure where at the moment, but I don't know. We have a very interesting arrangement. Before the last 2 or 3 years, the surviving members have changed their bylaws because they're incorporated. And they have taken in any family members or deceased offspring from the people who are in the squadron. And they're going to run the thing from now on.
That's good.
We'll see what happens.
Perpetuate it.
Yeah.
Don, is there anything you'd like to add that we've not covered in the interview today?
You know, I have trouble thinking about things I want to do at this point in time.
Well, Don, we thank you for being here with us today, and we want to thank the Aspen Elks Lodge number 224 and the Thrift Shop and GrassRoots TV and the crew here today. And this review will be going to the Library of Congress and also to the Historical Society, and we'll put more information in the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much, Don.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.